Okay, I also see we have 7 participants, Liz being one of them. If at any point you either can't hear me or you have questions, you can either just go ahead and ask them, or you can use under the little chat. You can write out your questions too. I can handle it either way. So what I'm going to do tonight, first of all, I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm Pat Erwin-Ploog. I'm the Assistant Dean of Library Services for Granite State. And I don't know if any of you have contacted me before, but what I generally do when I do these sessions is I'll give you a little overview of the library and the kinds of services we offer. Because it's not always apparent to students what the library can do for you. For this class in particular, Liz has sent me your assignment, and she also gave me some of your research questions. So what I'm going to do is really address that first and show you maybe some techniques related to developing your question as it impacts your searching in the discovery service. Then we're going to go into the actual discovery service. We'll do some searching. I'll show you how maybe you can limit your search and get better results. So if there's anything else you'd like me to add, just speak up and I can add it. So I'm going to start with student services. And I'm not going to go into the page because this I only want to keep you an hour, and this is it's a little different from the session I normally do. One of the I can help you with a research strategy. So if you're really struggling with your question and you're either finding millions of hits or no hits, give me a call or email me and we can work through your research question. I can help you with your bibliographies, and in this case it will be a works cited page. I can't review your whole bibliography. I know students send them to me sometimes, but I can certainly look over 1 or 2 of your citations and make sure they're correct. Or if you're struggling with an odd kind of citation, like how do I cite a blog posting or a tweet, I can certainly help you with that. I want to recommend too that this is a beginning class, and maybe some of you aren't beginning students at GSC, but if you don't have a GSC ID card, please get one. I'm sure there are other benefits, but from the library's perspective, as you progress in your career at GSC, there might be times when we don't have the resources you need. And if you write to me and you say, I want to look at an article, but I can only read the abstract, I can tell you where that article is, what academic library in New Hampshire has it. You have to go there and sit down at a network computer to access the article, because our lease agreements don't allow us to send digital resources over email to one another, even though we're all part of the university system. But you will be able to access the article. You can also check out any resources that a student at one of those institutions could check out. So if there was a book at St. Anselm, for example, or Southern New Hampshire University, and you had your GSC ID card, you could check out a book from there. So there are certain benefits to it. The other thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is the fact that we're a totally digital library. And in that respect, we're one of the few academic and college-related libraries in the country that's totally digital. The good news about that is that you could do your research any time of the day or night. We're never closed. The challenge is that unlike more traditional academic libraries, when you walk in, there's a whole cadre of librarians who can help you with your research. We don't exactly have that. We have me. And one of the things I've done to try to compensate for that is we're on the library homepage right now. And if you go down to, let me get over here a little bit. To contact, ask your librarian. You can email me. You can call me, and students call me all the time, so don't feel like you're bothering me. There have been cases where I can meet a student face-to-face, too, if that's the most convenient to you. I run reference services 7 days a week from 6 in the morning till midnight, and when the term is in session. And I guarantee that you'll get a response in 24 hours. Oftentimes, it's much faster than that. But this is a way of trying to help you navigate and sort of compensate for the fact that we are a totally digital library and we don't have this group of librarians there to help you. So please make use of that. The worst is when I finally get a student and they've been very frustrated because they haven't been able to get an answer for something and they're trying to do research and they wait till the last minute to call me. So call often, call within those hours, and I'll be able to help you. So let's talk a little bit about your assignment. And I put together a page on our research guides. One of the pages, and I'll tell you right up front, is going to disappear after this session, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I will give Liz the URL to this. The first page of it really talks about what I have just been talking to you about our services. But the second one is about your assignment specifically. What I did when I started looking at the assignment was rearrange it just a little bit and thinking about how you focus your research question and turn it into a viable search strategy with appropriate keywords. One of the things that students write to me all the time about is, first of all, they can't get a good search strategy going. But the other thing is, this was taking them so long to do. Part of the issue with taking so long is that research does take a long time. It's not something you can wait till a half an hour before you're going to write a paper and think you're going to do your research. The process of good research does take time. But I think there are ways that we can make it a little more efficient, and the more you practice with these ways, the better you'll get. How you're going to identify conversations and scholarly resources about your research question. I just made it a little simpler and said, what are scholars writing about in your topic? And then formatting your essay in MLA resources. And I do have some resources for you. So let's start thinking a little bit about keywords and how you go about thinking about keywords. I'm going to scroll down a little bit on this page. I think all of you know right now, research always starts with a question. And how good you get at formatting that question will really have an impact on how good your research is. So I always start out with the question, well, what do you want to know? And I use a reporter's approach. I ask who, what, when, where, and why, and kind of move from there. And then I might use a concept map. And these are techniques that I use in my own research, too. So they're not things that I'm just telling you that, well, they might work. I find them very useful. Some people can just run through the who, what, when, where, and why and not ever touch a concept map. Because I'm sort of a visual person, I like concept maps. And the example I have has to do with climate change. And this is actually a question students a student asked me. They said they were writing a 3-page paper on climate change. Well, 3 pages to discuss climate change isn't very much. But more importantly, climate change, you could write several books about it. The technique is really to begin to ask those questions. You could approach it in so many different ways. You could approach it by public policy. You could approach it, what does it mean to think about climate change? What climate are we changing? Is it the climate in the United States, or do we want a broader world view? So that's the way I might use a concept map. And then from there, I begin to think about search terms. And I have links to a variety of glossaries. As you might know, every discipline has its own set of search terms and keywords. And one of your challenges when you develop a research question is to tap into that glossary and those terms. But I think the most effective thing right now is to actually show you a sample of how this might work. And this is the page actually that is going to disappear after this session. And the reason is because I took one of your research questions and I worked through this. And I wasn't quite sure it was fair that I would do it for one question. Whoever's question this is going to get some benefit from me working through it, I hope. So the question was, social media, along with new technology, becoming a source of media bias information? Good question. There's also a lot going on in that question. So I started using the who, what, when, where, why approach to format maybe some more specific questions. Who? Do you want to know about US citizens and whether social media is influencing media bias? Young adults? Social media? What social media? There's all sorts of social media out there. Are you thinking maybe about Facebook or Twitter? Or you could go in a completely different direction and say new technologies. I'm not sure what those new technologies are. You need to tell me what those are. Where? Are you interested just in the United States or a world view of this? You're going to also have to define media bias for me, because I'm not sure what, there are a lot of different definitions. Your idea of media bias might not be mine. So you're going to need to think about that a little bit. So I put together a concept map. I'm hoping all of you can see this. I did this very quickly today. I started thinking about, well, what types of information do I need? I might need research studies. I might need articles. I might need government documents. If I'm looking at articles, do I want popular articles or do I want scholarly articles? If I'm looking at the impact of social media, I might be looking at voting, personal opinions, government actions related to media bias. And unfortunately, this got cut off. But what social media? I might want to focus on just one. Your paper is 5 to 7 pages. That might sound like a lot to you, but it's really not that much for a topic like this. So what I came up with, and I will get a better copy of the PDF if you need it, is what I'm really interested in is Facebook and media bias in voting. That's when I finally got down to what I really wanted to know about it, and thinking about, well, does media bias impact voting? And I'm not terribly concerned in this question about who. because it's mostly adults, I assume, who are voting. And I'm really going to focus on the United States. So that's kind of the process that I went through. And I'd have to say, your process could be completely different, depending on what you wanted to know finally and how you wanted to approach it. And I will talk a little bit about the capital An's when I get over into the Discovery Service, which is where I'm going to go back to now. Does anybody have any questions yet?
I've got a question, Pat.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What if, I've got a little bit of background about the question, so I think I can ask this question. What if you're not really sure, you just kind of have a general sense that social media may be contributing to bias, but you're not really sure, well, is it Facebook? Well, is it Twitter? If you're in more of that kind of exploratory vein, what kind of strategy would you recommend for that?
I wouldn't limit my searching to Facebook then. I would just use social media.
Okay.
Instead. What I'm trying to do, and this is why I said your search strategy might be very different than mine based on what you decide you need to know. But one of my goals is to help all of you be a little more efficient in your searching. Yeah. So I always imagine it as rummaging in the attic, looking for stuff, versus knowing what box it's in, and kind of, you might not know exactly where it is in the box, but you got the right box. So, okay, so we go over to start my search. And if you don't know already, the user ID is GraniteSC, and that's a password too. And I also have a help document to get everybody started, which I can give to Liz. It's got the passwords on it for both the Discovery Service and Sage publications. So you log in. And this is what's known as the basic search page. I'm not going to talk too much about it except to tell you one thing. Under search options, you'll notice that full text is checked. That is the default in basic search, which means that anything that you are searching for, you're going to get the full text of the article. You aren't going to get just the abstract. You can turn it off. You have that power. I would recommend you leave it on simply because I spend a fair amount of time with students who, for some reason, go right to the advanced search and start searching where a full text is not the default. They don't turn the full text on, and they get tons of research that looks great for their papers, but we don't have it, and I can try to search it down, and oftentimes no college in New Hampshire has it. So it kind of defeats the purpose. You might know the paper exists, but if it only exists and Harvard is the only place that has it, unless you're willing to drive all the way down to Cambridge to look at this paper, we can't get it. So let's start just with the keyword search. And I just want to do a very general search on social media, because I want to show you something else. And this kind of gets at Liz's question too. If you did a search on social media, come on. Social media is a nice broad topic, and the first thing you're going to see is a research starter. I think of these as Wikipedia for research. They're written by both scholars and librarians, and if you open it up, it's going to be a long article, usually, about your topic. So if you didn't know much about social media, or you wanted to know what was included in social media, the Research Starter would be a great place to start. It gives you terms, it will give you concepts. Sometimes it gives you the leaders. Well, this one has Mark Zuckerberg listed as a leader in the field, of course. And down the bottom of the article, there is always a bibliography. And I'm just going to mention this. It's called bibliography because it is format neutral. It is neither MLA nor APA. It is simply, these are the articles and research that were used to put together the Research Starter. So just keep that in mind, because there's a good chance there are, at this point, over 1 million of these Research Starters in the Discovery Service. So there's a good chance you're going to hit one at some point. But let's go back to the basic search page, because I want to do my search on Facebook and media bias and voting. That I decided that was where my research was going to head. And the first thing you're going to notice is up here. I got 10,200 hits. Not great. I could probably be more precise. But I could use some of the search limiters along the left navigation. And the first one I would turn on is peer review. And I can't remember the assignment, but I assume at least some of the research needs to be peer reviewed. Is that right, Liz?
I'm glad you asked the question, because it really depends on what the question is, and what the assignment stresses is multiple perspectives and views.
Okay.
So I would expect that peer-reviewed scholarly review would be one perspective that would be relevant to the question, but then the student might want to look at a different perspective as well.
Okay, then I will show you how to do that too.
Fantastic.
Okay, peer-reviewed, I checked it, and we're down to 2,700 hits. Still too many. Social media and voting and media bias is a relatively current field, so I probably would use the date slider, and I might slide it over to 2014. So no articles or research that I got would be older than 2014. And you know, it didn't decrease that much because there's so much currently being written. I then need to ask some questions about geography. Am I only interested in how this is working in the United States? And geography relates to not where something is published, but what it's about. And if I'm only interested in social media, voting, and media bias in the United States, I'm going to turn that on. And I'm down to 13 articles. And then the other one I generally turn on is English. And as it turns out, all 20 articles are English. And as I'm looking through these articles, I don't see any that are, well, there might be a couple that would be relevant. But I would probably need to work a little more on my research strategy. But I can show you opening up the full text of one of the articles. There are, if I were to look at this article and say, this is a really useful article for me, there are a couple things I could do with this article. The first one is to come down to the end of the article to references. These are the articles that the researcher who wrote this article used in doing his own or her own research. Some of these articles might be useful to you, so scan them and think about whether there's information there you want to use. The other way that you can use an article is by doing an author search on either of these authors. One of the things that happens with researchers is that the longer they're in their field, the more focused they get, and their sort of view of what they're studying in some ways becomes smaller and deeper. So Todd Jones may have written some other articles that would be of interest to you. You know, do an author search. While we have the article open, there are two things I also wanted to show you. The first one is over here as the Cite tool. And if you click on this, you're going to get, all the way down here, the citation for this article. It reminds you that your bibliography page in MLA is called Works Cited. And then you can copy and paste this right into your Works Cited page with the following warning. You're still responsible for doing it correctly. And this is something I tell my students all the time, that just because we've got the tool doesn't get you off the hook for doing it correctly. It just means it can speed the process up a little bit for you. So just be forewarned about that. The other thing is, I used to tell students about the EBSCO folders, and we have had a lot of trouble with the EBSCO folders lately. So I'm not even going to mention that as a way to save articles, but I'm going to show you another technique. If you want to save a bunch of articles, you can certainly download them onto your computer. Or you can use this little tool right over here, which is the permalink. If you click on it, this is the link to this article. And a permalink is a link that never goes away. So unlike, I know I have a lot of students who take the URL up here and think that that's going to always take them back to the article. All of these articles are in databases, and each time you search the database, this URL changes. The permalink is actually embedded in the article. You can't see it, but it's there. So this is the link that you would take. And then you could just copy the title and the permalink and slip it into whatever method you have for keeping track of your research. So that's that. Let's see, I want to make sure I mention everything here. You have also a part of your assignment where you need to scan other sources and scan journals. Oh, okay, other sources, first of all. Over here, remember when we turned peer review on? I'm going to turn that off. Slowly tonight. Yes, there we go. And I don't think I'll turn any of the others off. But under source types, you could show more and open it up, and then you would get other types of information that's in the GSE Discovery Service. You could get trade publications, magazine articles, and magazines are not scholarly. They might be very useful to you. As Liz was mentioning about other sources of information, you could get news articles. There's not too many in here. Other topics have more. But it might give you some ideas about then going out and searching on the web too of what kinds of things you're looking for. So that's one way you can use the source types to look at other kinds of information. But what I also wanted to show you was publications. And there's a point here where I'll have to close down and reopen because Zoom does not like me to change. When I'm going into publications, I'm going into a new server. And for some reason, that bothers Zoom a whole lot. And you'll only be able to see part of this. You know, Liz is laughing. Yes, I am. I've gotten so many workarounds at Zoom at this point. Okay, I just want to do a social media. I want to know what we've got in social media. And I'm really interested in just journals. And just, you know, this is not readily apparent to everyone unless they've been hanging out in libraries. But when you're searching first in the Discovery Service, chances are you're searching for articles. Articles are always included in journals. Think of the journal as the umbrella and all the little things under the umbrella as the articles. So you have a question about scanning and finding out what's being written about your topic. In this case, I'm using social media. Here's a journal, New Media and Society. Let me open this up. Okay, this is where I am going to have to stop my screen share. Okay, do you see Media and Society? Yeah, okay. I would go to the current issue and just scan through the table of contents. This is going to give you a great sense of what scholars are writing about. I do this a lot, particularly with certain, usually in business and nursing. This is great technique to just think about, you know, what's current in your topic. These are always, and that's, I guess, another difference between looking at information on the web and looking, say, at a journal's table of contents. It takes a good year and a half between when a writer submits an article for publication in a journal and when it eventually shows up in the journal, and then it can take 3 months before it shows up in the library, versus doing a search, say, of the New York Times current issues and finding newspaper articles, which maybe would be 2 or 3 days old, or going on to a radio site. And I'm thinking specifically of some of the public radio stations that have been doing lots of programs on social media and listening to something. That's going to be much more current, but this is going to be the research that these people probably have looked at data and made certain assumptions about social media. So that's sort of the difference there. And I'm not going to go too much into looking at journals, simply because it's so hard on Zoom. And the other thing is that it's almost one of those things that's easier one-on-one to help you with. So if you're having trouble finding journals or finding actual articles in journals, just give me a call. Okay, I'm going to go back now and see what I can do here with a new share. Let me get here, go back. There we go. Okay, we're back at the library homepage. And let's go back to our research guide. And the last thing I wanted to show you was the MLA resources and just talk to you a little bit about those. I have a whole section. This may be more than you ever wanted to know about citations and citation formats. But I will say that if I were a scholar or a researcher and I wrote a paper and I wanted to get it into a really good journal, that journal has certain guidelines about how they want to see your paper before you submit it. And those guidelines are called styles, and style manuals are what they use. So I follow my style manual, and it just so happens that those style manuals are APA and MLA. So for you as a student, what that means is you're going to be producing your paper and your bibliography page in a certain style. And for writing, the writing process, English 500, you're using MLA, Modern Language Association Style Manual. So nobody's going to make you read the whole style manual. What we do is there are two citation generators for your works cited. The first one I just showed you in the Discovery Service. The second one is Citation Builder from the University of North Carolina Libraries. And I recommend this one for two reasons. First of all, it's very simple to use, but the other is that the University of North Carolina got a federal grant to develop this. So we all paid for this service, and we get to reap the rewards. You tell it what you want to cite, what citation style you want to use, and then down here there'll be a form that you fill out. You click on the button, and it spits out the citation for you. Again, you got to look at it. I haven't found too many problems with Citation Builder, but you still need to be aware that it's your responsibility. The other links I've given you are to the Purdue University's online writing lab, the whole MLA guide. But I also gave you a link directly to the style guide that will tell you all the details about margins and where your title page belongs, what belongs on the title page, and in what format, in sort of excruciating detail. And then finally, there's a link to a sample paper. They also have 2 videos that if you're ever really interested or have nothing to do on a Friday night, MLA formatting and MLA works cited. They're short videos, but some people prefer video over, reading. I don't have a link to the MLA website because they've been very slow in really putting up their details of their style. APA has this very developed site that is extremely detailed, but MLA has been slower in doing that. Okay, we have been going for about 40 minutes. What I'd like to do at this point is turn it over to questions for any of you that have questions. You can write them in chat or you can just say them. This is a very quiet group, but you're all not muted.
Yeah, I think maybe I could ask a question that might be helpful because it has come up in some of the class discussions.
Sure.
There's so much information, and as you're trying to, refine your research question a little bit, which takes a process, what kind of strategy would you recommend for really keeping that research process manageable? And I will say that I have devoted this weekend and all of next week for the class just to research. So I'm really hoping that, it can be manageable for them. But if you've got any strategies that you'd recommend for making this a manageable process.
What do you mean by manageable?
That you don't freak out and get overwhelmed and feel like you're wrapped around your own axle because there's too much information.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That.
Well, first of all,
right?
Don't drink any coffee. No coffee. Wine helps. I would say one of the things that you can do is start early and almost put blinders on. I think one of the things that you can start doing with the web especially is you go down one path and all of a sudden you're somewhere else and you think, wow, that's kind of interesting. And you start going down that path and pretty soon you've strayed pretty far afield. So, and this is a balancing kind of thing, that to know when to think about incorporating other information versus really saying, nope, that's interesting, and maybe someday I'll come back and look at that, but this is the task at hand right now. And that's really hard to do. Okay, Amber is asking, strategies would help a lot. So a good start to me is really firming up your question. And I think one of the things that I see is that students think they're going to be incredibly lucky. And we all do this. It's not just students, but we think we'll be lucky and we just start searching and start hoping that we're going to hit upon something. And, lo and behold, it's 8 hours later and you still really haven't found anything. So I must say, like, one of the last steps is to start searching for stuff, to spend a lot of time thinking about what you really want to know without getting so precise that you're not going to find anything. Oh, I think, Amber, that's what Liz was Liz, can you see the question?
Yes, I can. Amber, I think based on the research question that you have, you're probably going to want to look at a combination of things. There will be scholarly articles that have been written about, how African Americans have been portrayed in different kinds of literature or movies or what have you. So, I mean, there will be scholarly articles that you can read. So that'll give you one perspective as far as what the scholarly conversation is saying about it. But then another perspective that I'd recommend would be that you actually go out and look at some of this stuff yourself. So actually, if you get a chance, watch a movie, read some short stories, read some poetry, look up, who wrote it, find out about them. But to have a combination to get those two perspectives of, what you're seeing yourself, and the impressions that you're getting and the analysis that you're doing, but then also look and see, all right, then what is the scholarly conversation? And, how do I put those two together? So that's what I'd recommend for a strategy for your particular topic.
Renee also said she has trouble narrowing her question.
Yeah, Renee, could you remind us what you ended up refining your question to? Because I know that you went through a few things and you did end up refining it. So could you refresh our memory on that? You can just type it in if you want. Okay, we can wait.
Yeah. Are there other things?
There we go. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, this, Pat, this was one. In fact, I asked Renee this question. Was she's interested in whether bullying has changed over time?
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to get a sense of, what time frame would be relevant,
Yeah.
for her to look at.
She might want to think a little bit about bullying takes many different formats. What kind of bullying, and who's being bullied, and who is actually doing the bullying, because that may have changed also over the last 30 years. Yeah, there are a whole lot of different ways that could be approached, and they'd all be kind of interesting. And I think you'd find certainly a lot of both popular information. And I like the idea that you mentioned about watching a film. There's certainly a lot of bullying that goes on in film and in short stories.
Yeah, I mean, the classic is Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, how guns have become involved in social media and bullying. That that looks again to me like a really big question.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, especially if, since you said last semester you had trouble narrowing things down. I think really hard about your question, and maybe, yeah, bring it down a little bit. Maybe not add guns, or maybe just focus on guns.
Yeah, another strategy that I suggest, and I don't know if you have any tools that you might recommend for doing this. I think people use different things. Like I use an idea notebook or an idea file. But if you're really interested in a particular topic and it's quite broad, and you want an opportunity to really dig into it, there are opportunities in other classes.
Yep.
Where you might be able to do that. So capturing that, so that you're not losing that interest, but at the same time, you're still keeping it manageable.
I mean, that actually is a strategy that works in a lot of different areas. That maybe the first couple of classes you take, you focus on one aspect, and by the time you get to your capstone,
exactly,
you've got all the little pieces together, and now you're going to put the big framework together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, don't lose those good thoughts. Just keep them somewhere.
Right, keep them somewhere.
Your back pocket that you can pull out. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I expect that people probably will have questions or perhaps need some one-on-one help once they...
That's usually what, yeah. This is just kind of to whet your interest and kind of get you going a little bit. But yeah, and chances are I will run into you later in your GFC career. So, what if you... Amber, it will depend. There are on what the way you search. Sometimes when you do the geographic limiter, if there's enough research in a particular area or a particular state, a new box will come up and you can click, like, say, I'm just giving this off the top of my head, but bullying, you said bullying in the United States, and then a list of states showed up and New Hampshire was one of them. And if you were only interested in sort of bullying in New Hampshire.
I guess another thought might be urban versus rural.
Yeah.
Those kinds of differences. Because that gets at different regions as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you'd get something with Eastern or Western United States. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think they're on the right track.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Do you guys meet regularly online, or are you strictly
asynchronous?
Asynchronous. Okay.
Asynchronous.
Okay.
Yeah. It's tricky with people's schedules.
Oh, I know. The graduate classes have built a, I think it's a weekly Zoom meeting into all of their classes. And I've gotten very used to that. I've not known how it was working with undergraduates.
I
So,
think it really varies by the class.
yeah,
It really varies by the class. And again, I think it's going to depend on schedules of the people that are taking the classes.
right, right. Okay. So did you all find this useful? I like to check in with students afterwards. Just I'm never quite sure, particularly in a class that's very quiet. So you know where to find me. It was a refresher for me. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna, I also never know in a class how many people have already gone through something like this. So, okay. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, as someone who's been around this for quite a while, is that these resources change on a regular basis. So it helps for anybody, myself included, to get a refresher on a regular basis and go back in, because it changes. It changes on a regular basis.
And I'd have to say that I don't have a lot of control over that. I put out all sorts of help documents on Sage, and then the whole look of Sage collection has changed. So, and with no warning.
Yeah, that's the way of the online environment.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, have a good evening, and you know how to reach me. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get the recording prepped, because it's too big to send through email. But
so I should be able to post it in my Moodle course when you get it ready?
You can't post it. We now have to put it on YouTube.
And just do a link.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And Liz will send you the link, and I'll also give you the link to this guide. Okay, have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time, Pat. We really appreciate it.
Okay, this was great. Okay,
All right,
see ya.
Thank you. All right, bye.